So man, fear, oh Jesus Christ. Fear is one of those emotions that really can kind of blindside us and essentially just destroy any sort of good habits that we might have built, or it might derail us from any sort of goals that we might have. And I think for me, when it comes to creating these videos, that's probably been the hardest thing for me to overcome, is that fear of failure, that fear of putting myself out there, and essentially just the fear of the unknown, or like just the idea of I don't really know what the fuck I'm doing, and I'm putting myself out there and I'm putting myself at risk for judgment or criticism. And there's sort of like this level of emotional embarrassment that comes or that you risk when you put yourself out there like this. You know, when you put your face out there, or when you decide to write a song and post it on the internet, or even even just making posts on Instagram or Facebook, you always run that risk of social embarrassment. And that type of fear kind of plays in the background of our psyches, and even if we aren't directly like conscious of the fear in the present moment, it can still actually affect our behavior. And so I know for me, I I that's been the hardest part throughout this entire process, is trying to overcome that fear. And I think anybody who has any sort of creative drive is going to have to grapple with fear on some level. And it might not be fear of social embarrassment. That might not be what generates the fear. It could be like just the fear of not being able to continually create something, or it might be the fear that you're just not um, capable of even creating anything at all. I mean, it could be literally anything. Or you might be afraid that you're not going to have time to continually create something. And so the fear of just the lack of time is holding you back. But whatever the fear is, uh, whatever is causing the fear, it it can have a tendency to actually affect our behaviors in sort of these subconscious or unconscious ways. And I think taking my little hiatus from YouTube, like that's the one thing it's taught me about fear, is that it really rules a lot of people's behaviors, mine included, and especially with this project in particular. But it has this tendency to affect our behavior in ways that we are not even aware of until we become aware of it. And so, you know, that's where things like if you meditate, or if you do like psychedelics, or like whatever you might do, that's where you can actually become conscious of those fears, and get over them. But I mean, you don't have to do drugs or meditate to be able to figure it out. But really, just like digging inside of our psyches, that allows us to discover what is holding us back and what we're afraid of. And I think for me, in particular, like my fear has been just the fear of not being good enough, or the fear of putting myself out there and not really understanding or not really knowing what this project is going to eventually evolve into. I'm kind of just winging it to an extent. I mean, I have a vision and I have a specific idea of what I'm trying to do, but the fear of the unknown, the fear of the fact that I don't know what's going to become of this, and the fear of that social embarrassment, that has been a driving force and a driving resistance to creating these videos. When the simplest way to overcome the fear is just to fucking do it. Don't worry about being afraid. Don't listen to that part of your mind. But sometimes like that's not enough. Like sometimes you do have to dig in deep and find the fear, look it in the face, understand where it's coming from, and then actually overcome it. And you can only overcome it by actually facing it head on rather than just ignoring it. I mean, there's a time and a place to just ignore your fear and bust through the resistance that you feel. But on the other hand, fear, if we're going to deal with fear, or if we're going to get rid of fear, if we want to act in the face of fear, it's a lot easier to just understand the fear itself and get rid of it. And I don't think you can overcome fear by just ignoring it and suppressing it and acting in spite of it. that is a technique that you could use to not let it affect you, but on some level, with dealing with fear, you have to actually face it and process it and let it go. At least that's what I think I've had to come to terms with when it comes to making videos. So in any creative process that you might involve yourself with, or if any creative or any sort of goal in life that you have that involves some level of failure, or involves some level of just putting yourself out there, or that involves anything really, you might have to deal with the fear. And I think the best way to deal with it is by actually tracing its roots, digging it up, and then facing it head on. I mean, yes, act in spite of it, do what needs to be done despite your fear, but if you actually want to get rid of that fear itself, you have to actually process it and deal with it head on. So that's what I've learned from our little hiatus. Yeah, on the nature of fear. So until next time.